She writes, she's in Vancouver, and my son is in Napanee, so they couldn't be here today. She writes, my memories of Father Trojac have over the past week really crystallized into one perfect image. Perfect because deeply felt, and one of those rare instances of a shared happiness in something distinct and at the same time indefinite. As an undergrad in music, it occurred to me one day that it would be the height of cool to do an independent project with Father Trojac, our badass priest, whose CD collection alone would be the envy of any musicologist. I had no plan, no specific topic, no real course outline, and of course, Father Trojac agreed in a heartbeat to supervise my project. Our first meeting went something along the lines of, "So, what are you planning on researching, Katerina?" Well, actually, I was hoping you'd have a suggestion. The Bach Passions. Sure. My perfect image is of sitting in the sunshine in Father Trojac's garden, next to the flower bed, carved out in the shape of the African continent, chatting contentedly about this aria and that passage from the Gospels. Since that afternoon, every time I listen to Bach's Passions, I think of Father Trojac. And for me, there's a squinty smile, even through the most poignant parts of those magnificent pieces. This is from her brother, my son Nikolai. As one of the dreaded millennials, I often have great difficulty merging what are the sometimes seemingly antiquated words of the Church with modern life. Father Trojac, however, overcame this divergence, effortlessly rendering Catholicism to make the Lord's word pertinent and relevant to my generation. Father Trojac was a man whose humble selflessness, unwavering bravery, and limitless understanding I will strive to carry into a career as an emergency responder. If I possess the capacity to support and guide a fraction of those touched by Father Trojac's inspiring sermons and love, I will count myself beyond fortunate and blessed. Nikolai sent this to me as an email, and then he texted me to say, "Mommy, could you just make sure that that's okay? I'm a little bit worried about the antiquated words of the Church." I tweeted back to him, I texted back to him, "Nikolai, we're talking about Ron," right? And this is from me. When I first came to London to take up a position at King's College, Ron Trojac invited me to his house for a meal. I recall that dinner clearly. Non-Wei cooked. It was such a beautiful, beautiful evening. I sat literally surrounded by art. African sculpture stood in various places around the room. Masks and textiles clothed the walls. There were books everywhere, and CDs were strewn on every surface. I don't know how Ron would react to this, but I always saw him as a kind of Neoplatonist. He saw divine glory in human accomplishment, especially in art, music, philosophy, literature, theology. And this was also Ron's inspiration for his courage and his determination. Anyone who has ever attended one of Ron's masses knows the adventure of listening to his sermons. I say this without hyperbole or drama. Ron was possibly the greatest homilist of his generation. Ron, of course, would laugh and pull his famous raspberry if he heard me say that. His passionate and authentic intellect illuminated and provoked even the most tired gospel readings. Mass was not only a sacrament, it was always also food for thought. Like his hero Paul, Ron was the most Catholic of men, welcoming everyone, alarming the authorities, and not letting the system get in the way of Christ's vision of the world. Ron always led the way, didn't he? We were jubilant when Obama was elected. Ron was way ahead of us. And now with Francis, again, Ron foresaw it all. Ron drew his tenacity of faith in humans from what he was convinced we could do. It comes as no surprise then that he sometimes got quite impatient. I'd like you to bear with me now. I'd like to read a short passage from Pico's famous essay on the dignity of man, which he wrote around 1487. It reminds me so much of Ron's hope. Pico writes at the end of this essay, which is the climax of his argument, "We, raised up into the loftiest watchtower of theology, and looking at the primeval beauty, shall be prophets. And finally, roused with charity, placed outside of ourselves, filled with divinity, we shall now not be ourselves, but he himself who made us. That was Ron's vision, and that hope doesn't die with him. Today, though, I deeply feel the loss of a brilliant, passionate, and colorful man. Thank you for giving me the chance to say that.